China's Air Force is large but full of old aircraft. With 1,700 aircraft, the Chinese Air Force has only 3,400 fighters in the service of the U.S. military. However, the majority of Chinese fighter aircraft are older generation fighters. The People's Liberation Army Air Force and the People's Liberation Army Navy Air Force, collectively known as the Chinese Air Force, currently have 1,700 combat aircraft, including fighters, bombers, and aircraft. Ground attack. Currently, the Chinese Air Force uses many different types of aircraft. However, most Chinese military aircraft are inspired by or copied from Russian or American designs, so it is not too difficult to grasp their capabilities, based on their origins. The type of fighter most copied by China is the MiG-19 with the Chinese name J-6. This was the first supersonic fighter of the Soviet Union to use air intakes in the nose. The ground attack version of the J-6 is the Q-5, which still has about 150 aircraft in service, but upgraded to use precision-guided weapons. In the early 1960s, the Soviet Union also transferred to China its most modern fighter, the MiG-21, later built by China into Chengdu J-7. The J-7 production schedule only really started from 1978 to 2013 when it ended. Factories in China have produced thousands of J-7 light aircraft in dozens of variants, in addition to serving in the Chinese Air Force, also for export. There are still about 400 J-7s, still in service with the Chinese Air Force. The J-7 is an aircraft designed in the 1950s, in terms of maneuverability and speed that can match the F-16, but the J-7 cannot carry much fuel or weapons, and equipped with only one low-power radar in the cone. However, China has made efforts to improve to meet the requirements of modern warfare. The J-7G version introduced in 2004, included an Israeli Doppler radar, with a 60 km detection range and improved missiles, for out-of-sight combat, as well as a digital glass cockpit. The J-7 can hardly survive against modern fourth-generation fighters, which can detect and engage the enemy at much longer ranges, proven practice between the Israeli and Syrian Air Force. In the last year, 1982, although hypothetically, the J-7 relies on numbers, able to overwhelm defenders, with swarm attacks. Another clone was the Xi'an H-6, a twin-engine medium bomber, based on the Tu-16 Badger, developed by the Soviet Union in the early 1950s. It was also the only bomber of the Chinese Air Force today, but the bomb load of the H-6 is only 8 tons, on par with the F-15 fighter and far inferior in performance to the American B-52 or the Russian Tu-95 Bear. In the mid-1960s, China began to develop its own fighter aircraft. In 1979, the Shenyang J-8 Interceptor was born. This is a supersonic, twin-engine interceptor that can reach speeds of Mach 2.2. However, the J-8 lacks the modern avionics and maneuverability of an interceptor. The successor to the J-8-2 is improved on the old version with Israeli radar and a new nose shape. The air intakes are shifted to the sides, making it a heavy weapon but as fast as the aircraft. Fight. F-4 Phantom. About 150 J-8IIs are still in service. The JH-7 bomber, which entered service in 1992, is a two-seat naval bomber that can carry weapons up to 9 tons and has a top speed of Mach 1.75. JH-7 can attack targets from a distance, with cruise missiles, out of the enemy's range. The J-10 single-engine light fighter, considered the pride of China's fighter design industry, the J-10 features a highly maneuverable, wire drive system to compensate for the aerodynamically unstable airframe. Currently J-10 is still using Russian AL-31F engine. The most advanced version of the J-10 is the J-10C, which is equipped with an advanced infrared tracking sensor and active electronically scanned array, AESA, radar. However, the fleet of 250 J-10S, which have had several fatal crashes, may have been related to malfunctions in the wire flight system. The current mainframe fighter of the Chinese Air Force is a version based on the Soviet Su-27 flanker. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Russia fell into a state of economic crisis. China took the opportunity to exploit military secrets, including the Su-27 fighter, which the Soviet Union did not export before. After importing the initial batch of Su-27 fighters, Beijing purchased a license to domestically build its own copy, the J-11 version. After mastering technology from Russia, China began to independently build more advanced models such as the J-11B and D, despite Russian objections. After continuing to import from Russia versions Su-30 MKK and Su-30 MK2, Chinese designers copied the J-16. This is also the only fighter of the flanker series equipped with active electronically scanned array radar, AESA. Currently, this type of fighter is rapidly increasing in number in the Chinese Air Force. Regarding the fighter, refusing to buy the Russian Su-33 battleship at a high price, China bought the experimental prototype of the Su-33 from Ukraine and copied it into the J-15 fighter jet. About 40 aircraft are currently operating with the country's Liaoning and Shandong aircraft carriers. Versions from the Chinese Su-27. Theoretically on par with fourth-generation fighters such as the F-15 and F-16. However, they were equipped with domestically produced WS-10 turbofan engines, which had serious technical problems and were difficult to generate enough thrust. Jet engine technology is still the main limitation of Chinese fighters today. In 2016, China purchased 24 Su-35s, the most advanced and maneuverable variant of the flanker series to date, with the aim of learning Russian AL-41F turbofans technology. In the field of stealth fighters, China has developed two aircraft models, the J-20 and J-31, in which the J-20 is a heavy stealth fighter, 2 engines, first tested in 2011, entered service with the Chinese Air Force in 2017, is considered the most modern fighter of the Chinese Air Force today. Now on Chinese Army. The smaller, privately developed J-31, or FC-31, is essentially a clone of the F-35 Lightning. According to The Question, the J-31 can completely use the design hacked from the computer of the company Lockheed. Currently J-31 is still in the testing process and is only for export. Currently, about 33% of PLA Air Force fighters are second-generation fighters that are old, have little combat value, and are not strong enough to stand up to their peers. Another 28% consisted of strategic bombers and more capable but obsolete third-generation aircraft. Finally, 38% are fourth-generation fighters that could theoretically counter the likes of the F-15 and F-16. J-20 stealth fighters account for only about 1%. Despite possessing a large number of fighter aircraft, China lacks good pilots and advanced air doctrine, which greatly affects the combat ability of the Chinese Air Force. Therefore, China's Air Force is large but not very strong.